Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Amplify Your Business. Today, I'm talking to Mary Tibbets, the owner of Funky Petals on the north side of Edmonton. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Mary, you are in the flower business, and this is a really interesting one because the timeliness of the product that you're ordering, because it's coming from all over the world, it has to be timed just perfectly so it gets here. And it's fresh and looks amazing, and then you can sell it. But I would think that just ordering and managing that inventory to try to pace the inventory to your demand has to be one of your biggest challenges over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So we write a list every week of everything that didn't sell so we can buy less of it and more of something else. But it just all depends on the season that it is, because some stuff moves in September, some stuff moves in January. It's all very different.
Yeah, I would think so. And so, in terms of how managing that aspect of it to really learn that part of the business, how difficult was that for you?
It was definitely a struggle for probably the first year. I'm still learning. So, for instance, Valentine's Day was last week. So last year, Valentine's Day fell on the holiday weekend, so Family Day weekend, and on a Sunday. I didn't know that that's usually a horrible Valentine's Day, that it's just not very busy because people aren't around. So like last year, I ordered 1,500 roses. And then this year I was like, you know what, we'll cut that in half, because last year we got stuck with a whole bunch. And then this year we were sold out by 1:00. So it all just depends on when holidays fall. It depends on weather. Flower shops are very weather dependent, which is crazy. So usually mid-June till about the end of July, it slows right down, except for wedding season, because everybody's outside planting their own flowers. So you have to prepare for that. Yeah, it's just very different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that Funky Petals is a franchise, and you chose to get into the flower business through the franchise model. Now, I would think that the reason why you did that was so that you didn't have quite as steep a learning curve. You had somebody to rely on. Is that the reason? And is there other reasons why you chose the franchise model versus just starting something yourself?
Well, that's 100% true. It was because I'd never actually even really worked in a flower shop before. I know business. So, and I always wanted a flower shop, but I also didn't want to be kind of left out hanging all by myself, right? So at least that way I had something to fall back on. And Funky Petals has a really great name. It's one of the top flower shops, I guess I would say, in surrounding areas. So it was definitely a good choice on my end.
Yeah, and so you had mentioned to me in an earlier conversation that you're not new to entrepreneurship. You had, prior to this business, which you started in mid 2018, I think you said. Prior to that, though, you were also running an accounting or bookkeeping business. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I had a bookkeeping company. Oh my goodness, I think about 15 years. I still have one client, but for about 15 years. When my kids were little, I couldn't work in the offices as much as I just couldn't work in the offices because everybody had to be everywhere at different times, and I needed to have a little bit of flexibility. So I started a bookkeeping company, and I was very busy. I had 16 clients for a very, very long time. And it was nice because I could work. Well, I worked pretty much while they were sleeping. So then I could be kind of a stay-at-home mom at the same time. So yeah.
So what made you decide to get out of the bookkeeping business, which you'd been doing for 15 years, and get into the flower business then?
So I always wanted a flower shop. It's every little girl's dream. Well, not just a flower shop, but it's a lot of little girls' dreams to own a flower shop or a coffee shop or something. And I had some health stuff and decided when after I had surgery that I was like, I'm going to open a flower shop, because I just really didn't want to sit at a desk anymore, which is ironic because I still sit at my desk probably 16 hours a week.
But you get to be creative. There's a whole different side to flower shop versus a bookkeeping business, though. So I'd imagine it's really allows you to expand your I guess skill set and really explore different parts of your personality even.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to be able to go in and be like, okay, today we're redoing the website because that's what we do, right? So we have these containers, let's make them beautiful so we can put them up and figure that out.
Yeah. So what would you say would be a differentiating factor between Funky Petals and the rest of the stores, the flower stores that are in the Edmonton region? Then what sets you guys apart?
I can really only speak for my own shop, because there are a few other ones. There's one other one in Edmonton, and then there's some in surrounding areas. So I can really only speak for my shop. I know, and I don't really know what the other flower shops do. I just know that, like, for us, my big thing is support local. So in my shop, almost everything that we carry is local women products. So we carry Jasic chocolates, we carry Rick Petals, we try to make it that it's a one-stop shop for everybody, but then they're still supporting as many female entrepreneurs as possible.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a really good focus. And definitely you're a local business. And so supporting local just makes sense because obviously you want the same thing in return. That's your market.
Yeah, 100%. And the businesses that we support, so I'll give a little shout out to her because she's awesome. So the lady who started with Petals, she's very young. We were actually the very first shop that carried her. And then now she's international. She's fabulous and she's great. And we do giveaways, and we were working on an exclusive scent just for my shop. Like it's just, you make these relationships with these other entrepreneurs, and it's amazing, really.
Yeah, it's really great to be part of that ecosystem, right? It's to support each other and learn from each other. And I mean, that's the reason why we do this show, so that other entrepreneurs can learn from some of the lessons that the existing entrepreneurs are experiencing or have experienced, so they maybe aren't making the same mistakes going forward themselves. And speaking of that, what would you say would be some of the biggest lessons that you've learned being an entrepreneur, whether that's the bookkeeping side of things or that's the flower shop? What lessons have you garnered along the way that you might want to share with our audience?
So, like I was telling you earlier, our industry is very different than a lot of industries. It is technically retail, but not really. So for one of the biggest lessons I learned is to hire people that have experience. So when you bring people in that, I guess the best example would be, we get a lot of people that are like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to open a flower shop. And for the first couple of years, I was like, yeah, absolutely, that would be great. But then now, after doing it we're going on our 4th year, it's not really that kind of shop, right? Like, you have to be willing to put in the hours, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to be able to be creative and be on the phone and talk to the person that just came in, and you have to be able to deal with supply chains, and you have to be able to do all of this stuff all at once. And it's a lot more work than people think, I guess. Well, then I thought for sure when I opened, I was like, oh, this is going to be so great. We're going to make pretty things. And then now I'm like, wow, it is a lot of work to make sure that your cooler's full for when people come in. And at the end of the week, it might not all sell out. So then what do you do with the leftover stuff? And it's just definitely, that would probably be something that I learned, is hire people that have experience in our industry for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think any business can really underestimate the importance of good staff, right? Because as entrepreneurs, when we're trying to wear so many hats and juggle so many responsibilities and being pulled in so many different directions, it's really difficult to do that if you don't have a great team around you. And so I don't think it matters whether you're a flower shop or some, big retailer, or not even in the retail business. Staff is super important. And so when you're doing that, how do you ensure you're hiring the right person then? Do you have any tips, advice, anything that you've experienced along the way that you've been able to refine that process so you have the right people in the roles that you need them to be in?
And it's funny because that it's hard, right? Because you look at the resume and it says they have all of this experience and they're so perfect for the position, and then, or they have no experience, or whichever. And it all depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for seasonal or whatever, or somebody be there all the time. Honestly, now I go with my gut. I know that sounds crazy, but before I'm like, oh yeah, well, maybe it'll work if we hire this person to do this day and this person to do this day. And then at the end of it, it ends up costing me double what it would have cost for me to just hire one person to just be there all the time, right? So I definitely go with my gut a lot more than I used to, because I used to kind of weigh it, okay, well, this, that, and the other thing. And I do check references for sure, and just to kind of see what their previous employers thought.
Yeah. I think, like, for myself, one of the things that I really try to do when I'm hiring people is not hire the resume, but hire the person. And I think that the resume can be quite deceiving, and that's not intentional on the part of the applicant necessarily, but it's just it doesn't matter sometimes how much experience they have on paper at different roles and so on, and their skill set that they're showing there, or the education that they might have. What really matters is the person who's standing in front of you or sitting across the table from you when you're interviewing them. Are they a right fit for the company? Do they fit culturally, and do they have the ambition, the interest, the excitement for the job that they're applying for? And if they do, I think you can kind of train them on almost anything, as long as they have that base desire and interest. And I find, anyway, boy, if you can find somebody who has a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit to themselves a bit, then you've really got you've hit the home run, I think, in terms of the employee lottery, I think. But
Absolutely. No, I agree. Like, because then they treat it like it's their business too, right? So I have one of my girls is very much that. She's been with me since the beginning and she's amazing. Like, I trust her with everything. Okay, here, yeah, do it. Because I know that she's going to put as much love into it as I would. So yeah, she was a jackpot for sure.
yeah, and you just know, right? And like you said, the gut, you kind of get that feeling when you're having those conversations in the first few days. The other big lesson that I've learned over the years too is fire fast. If it's not a right fit, oftentimes, us as managers or owners, we're cheerleaders as well for our team, right? And we're trying to empower them to develop and to grow into the roles that we think that they can grow into. But if things aren't working out, I shouldn't say never, but very seldom have I saw things turn around where you'd be able to take somebody that isn't quite performing and turn them into somebody who becomes that exceptional employee. Oftentimes it just doesn't work out, and it's just a painful long exit. So
100%. And just to add to that, when you do have staff that are amazing and you want to keep them, treat them really well. Like even just small things, like on their birthday, bring them a cupcake, like just show that you appreciate them and that you pay attention to what they have going on in their life, right? Like they just definitely treat them like you don't want them to leave.
maybe get them some flowers.
Maybe get them some flowers.
Okay, so really good lessons there around just making sure you have the right employee and not sacrificing that, like really having that as a big key focus. It's going to make your life just so much easier as an entrepreneur. Now, in terms of like, because you've been in the business world now for a couple decades, combined with the bookkeeping as well as the flower shop, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've made then along the way, where again, I find if you share the mistakes, there's oftentimes some really good lessons in there that might save somebody else from repeating that exact same mistake?
Yeah, well, we were talking about it earlier. So cash flow is a mistake that a lot of people make. Just always make sure that you have cash flow. You need to make sure that it's as much as coming in as it's going out. More is coming in than what's going out. That's definitely a number one. And you need to set boundaries. It wasn't so much when I owned bookkeeping company, because it is what it is. This is when your taxes are due and I need your stuff and we need to just get it done. More so with owning a shop, a storefront, set your boundaries with your customers and your employees, but more so with your customers. So don't answer the emails at 11 o'clock at night, and don't respond to them on Facebook and Instagram at 9:30 when they're asking for an emergency bouquet the next day, right? Like you need to set the boundaries. We're open from this time to this time, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, I think that's a really difficult thing, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially new ones, like when you're starting a new business, because you're just oftentimes desperate for somebody to walk through that door to make that purchase. And so you're doing everything you possibly can just to attract and then convert them into a customer. So is that something that came naturally for you, or is that something that you really struggled with and you had to put in place procedures or processes or policies to make sure that you didn't burn yourself out?
So I used to answer all of the messages that came in on every platform until I went to bed. And sometimes my phone would even bing in the middle of the night and I'd be half asleep trying to put something together in my head to answer this question. So don't get me wrong, the first couple of years, you kind of have to make sure that they'll come back. But then I'd say probably, I don't know, about a year ago, I had to put something in place for, just because I just couldn't anymore. There was no family time, there was no nothing, and everybody's glued to their phone already, right? Yeah. So if you can just put your phone down at 8 p.m. and be like, no, I'm not answering anything until tomorrow morning. Like, don't get me wrong, when I get up at 6:45 in the morning, I go through my emails and go through all of my messages first thing, and people usually get a message back by 7:30, but it's not at midnight anymore, right? Yeah, so you just have to put some boundaries in there, more so for yourself.
Yeah, I think boundaries are really, really important. And one of the things too is I think for those who are also in the retail industry who have this issue where you have people reaching out at all hours. One option too is to look to automation as well. So there are chat bots that one can basically set up on your Facebook accounts, your Instagram Messenger, and all that kind of stuff that would allow the basic information to be answered. Now, obviously, if they're asking a very specific question that the bot itself doesn't have the data to answer on, then the message then would pop up and say, we'll connect you, or we'll pass this along to somebody who will get in touch with you in the morning or whatever. But that way, then they can get some of the more common questions and concerns, and they're answered basically immediately. And so it's a bit of a way of leveraging technology to really elevate that customer experience, so that again, people are walking away going, that was great. I was able to get what I needed answered, or most of it anyway.
Yeah, we have that on Facebook and Instagram. So
Good.
even if this is probably the most popular question is, what's your address?
Yeah.
So the bot sends the address. So then I actually don't even have to get back to them, right? So then it's done and it's over with. So
yeah,
yes, technology is wonderful.
Yeah. Any way that we can leverage it, it really is going to help out. So I'm just wondering about, the big box stores that are selling flowers and that, and we have all these independent small ones and franchises and so on. So it's not like you have an absence of competition, and some of those are really big competitors. How do you, as a small local independent business, compete against those big box stores that are maybe have the volume purchasing, and so price is a challenge to keep match, and different things like that? How do you compete with those companies?
Well, like I was telling you before, we try to do a lot to give back to our community, and it's the personal touch, right? When somebody comes in and they're standing there, I'll just use Valentine's Day again, just because it just happened.
Yeah.
It's a great example, but we have all of these men coming in going, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, let me help you. So what's her favorite color? What does she like? What kind of flowers does she like? Does she have a vase? Like, you go through all of these questions with them. And then at the end of it, they buy a plant because that's what she would like, right? Instead of walking into a big box store and you see 100 of the exact same thing that they might not necessarily want. Like, there's a lot of women out there that don't like roses. So if you go to a box store on Valentine's Day, they have roses. Yeah. So it's just the personal touch. We try to help as much as we possibly can. And we do custom stuff, right? Like, if somebody was to come in and say, well, it happened yesterday. I had a gentleman come in. He was like, oh, it's my wife's birthday. I forgot. I thought it was tomorrow. She likes pink and purple. Is there anything that you can do? And I said, sure. I said, I just need a half an hour. Give me a budget. I'll work with it. And he was super happy. Took a card. He's like, I'm going to tell everybody come here, because don't get me wrong. If my husband was to just buy me anything, I'm super stoked that he remembered to buy me something. But if he puts the time and the effort into it and he brings me something fabulous, it's just so much better than the box store flowers, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, customization, extra attention to detail, really supporting the customer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a common strategy for most small businesses. We all are trying to compete, and the best way to compete is on the service and the experience that our clients, our customers are going to have. And so anytime that we can elevate that, it's really difficult for the big boxes or corporate type operations to really compete. Yeah.
Like, so last year when we went into lockdown again, in the spring. So in Greece, we're in Greece Spa. So there's a Chartwell community living that's there. and they were in lockdown, having such a hard time not being able to see their family. So we did something, we decided we're going to do it every spring and pick a different retirement village. But it was called Adopt a Senior. So it was a $30 arrangement. You would pay for your $30 arrangement. And it was, I think, at the end of April. So all 256 residents actually ended up with a flower arrangement to put in their room. Yeah, it was wild.
Incredible.
And it was great. So it's just community stuff, right? Like that's not something that a box store would do, or even some of the other shops. I don't know if they would know to do it, or and you just get lots of ideas from a lot of people and just run with it your own way.
Yeah, and this goes to what, something I've been saying for years, and that is our small businesses are really the backbone of our economy, but they're also the backbone of our community. And for that exact reason, what you just said, we care, we do those extra things, we really make a difference in the communities. And if it wasn't for that, if we didn't have our independent small businesses, you would have a very cold, I think, community to live in. And so, yeah, anytime that we can support small businesses, and they're going to be supporting the community, in so many different ways. And so I love what you're doing there. That's really great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm just to wrap up here, how do people find you? And I guess, what is your address, if that's one of the most common questions that are asked?
So we do have a website, and we do deliver. We deliver all through Edmonton and surrounding areas. We have a website. It's www.funkypetals.com, and then you would just click on the North Edmonton location. We're located in Grease Spa, which is, if people don't remember, it's the old military base, just off of 97th and 137th. So our address is 586 Grease Spa Parade, and we're there Monday through Saturday. You can always just give us a call, go online, stop by. We're always happy to see people when they come in.
Yeah, and you're in social media, obviously. So which channels should they find you there?
I forgot about that. Instagram and Facebook. I tried Twitter, but that's a lot. It's a lot to manage. So Instagram for sure. And Facebook, obviously. And Instagram's probably the better one to follow, because we do a lot of giveaways with other locally owned businesses. Like we're doing one for International Women's Day with a charcuterie company that's local. So it's going to be a big giveaway for the boss babes out there.
Excellent. Which charcuterie company is that?
It's Our Table YEG. They actually just opened. So she's a friend of mine. So we're going to do a giveaway for everybody.
So thank you, Mary. I really appreciate you taking the time today to chat with us about your business, Funky Petals, on the north side of Edmonton, and also to share some of your wisdom, some of the lessons, some of your experiences along the way. I'm hoping that will help some other people out there. And again, the focus that you have on community and supporting local yourselves. I know we didn't get into the full backstory on that, but for those people who don't realize this, there are flower farms around the Edmonton area, and Mary's a big supporter of that too. So a lot of the stuff that they're bringing in the summer months are actually local too. So there is just so much local support that's going on, and local love that you are pushing into our community. So really thank you for that, Mary.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so for those of you who enjoyed this episode and want to listen to other episodes that feature other entrepreneurs, please head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. There you'll find the archive and all the future episodes as well. And if you happen to be an entrepreneur or a small business owner who has a great story to share, please fill out the form on that page, and you could be featured in an upcoming episode. Until next time, everybody stay safe.